Welcome, everybody, to our Friday live stream. We're coming to you from the Huckabee Theater, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where we will be taping our show this weekend, a must-see edition of the Huckabee Show, as they all are. There's no such thing as one that you can slough off. We do 52 fresh shows a year, so you will never tune in some weekend and say, yeah, I've already seen this one. No, you haven't, because it's going to be brand new, as is this week. We'll tell you more about that later. Pam Case joins me, as she does on Fridays, for our live stream, and she's the senior producer of the show. She'll be reading the questions that you're going to be sending in, and you can start sending those in right now. Some of the questions we even have from last week, but we would like to get you to start sending now. The sooner the better. More likely that we'll get to a question if you send it early. If you want more visibility for your questions, send it as a super chat. We got people who look over these questions and then field them to us. And from there, we try to answer quite a bit in the midst of playing some fascinating videos and going through the news of the week. As you can imagine, we got a lot to cover. The right holds the line against Bud Light's great woke mistake. Democrats continue to demonstrate they don't know or they don't care how money works. And FBI whistleblowers testify before Congress on the politicization of the Bureau. Now, if you want my thoughts on the Durham report that released this week, I broke down the details at length in yesterday's and Wednesday's breakdown episodes. Be sure that you check those out after the live stream is over if you haven't seen them already. If you watch us regularly on the live stream, you know we do a pre-show poll. For those of you that are kind of checking in with us before we start, and we always turn to Pam for the pre-show poll. What do we got this week?
Oh, you're going to like this one. Gov.
Okay.
All right. Several hundred votes, too, before the show started today. Who did corruption the best? Might it be Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama? Now, this is from Star Wars.
Okay.
Emperor Palpatine, or Black Mold?
Black mold?
Yes. Who did corruption the best?
I can't wait to get the results on this.
All right, Hillary Clinton, 70%. Come on, she carried it. Barack Obama with 26%, and our Star Wars character, 2%, and Black Mold coming through at 2% as well. But anyway, congratulations. Hillary won that one this week.
Wow. For some reason, I'm not surprised at all about that.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody, man. Almost 500 folks participating in our poll.
Must have lit a fire
today. Must have lit some kind of fire. Absolutely.
Well, our favorite comment from last week's live stream comes from Dave Wallenberg, who said, quote, "Who in their right mind would want to re-elect Biden?" I can't imagine. That's the whole point. I can't think that they are in their right mind. But that's just me, and I know I'm not completely objective. We also have a question for you this week. Love to get your response. Do you have confidence in the leadership at the FBI and the DOJ? Now, notice I said, do you have confidence in the leadership? Not saying that you might not have some confidence in the agents down in the field all over the country. But the people at the top, the people who are actually running the FBI and running the Department of Justice, do you have confidence in them? Leave your answers in the chat in the comments section below. If you have not already done it, please subscribe to the channel. It's real easy to do. Just touch that little subscribe button and also tap the notification bell. That way we can let you know when we're about to post new content. If you will hit the like and the share button, that also expands the number of people to get to see what we're doing. And of course, we want that to happen. You can help make that a reality. All right, let's get into it. The news continues to be dismal for Bud Light. Now, in all fairness, I'm not a beer drinker. I've never tasted it. I know that's weird to a lot of people. I smelled it when I was young, and someone offered me some, and I said, that smells like something that's gone bad. And I was repulsed by the smell of it, and my friend said, well, you have to develop a taste. And I'm a lot of things, but one of the things I am is a logical person. So what made me think was, okay, you're telling me that something that is repulsive and I don't have any interest in it, but if I force myself to imbibe this beverage, I will get to the point I can tolerate it and maybe someday even get to the point that I like it. And I just said to him, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know, if you wave something up under my nose that smelled great, I might say, I'll give that a try. But this smelled like something that had gone bad. So I just never cared.
Well, brand new definition of gone bad. Just saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, leading to the segue, the obvious one, talking about beer that's gone bad. Bud Light used to be a very prominent, popular brand, and it was sort of a brand of, you know, every man's kind of guy. And then they did this stupid thing with this pretend girl who is a guy named Dylan Mulvaney, and he pretends like he's not just a female, but he pretends he's a ditzy little girl. And for some reason that is known only to God and the marketing people at Bud Light, they thought it would be so cool to have Dylan Mulvaney do this ridiculously stupid Bud Light commercial. So they put her in it, and it has been downhill for them ever since. Sales are down in the 5th consecutive week now by like 25%. And it's just, their sales are falling apart. They can't give the stuff away.
Right.
The sad thing is, you know, there are people who just drive the trucks and deliver it and make it, and they had nothing to do with this. But the idiot at InBev, which is the parent company of Budweiser, thought it was great and came out and tried to justify it, saying, you know, the brand is kind of fratty. And I thought, well, that was brilliant. The few customers you have, you insult them and tell them that they're basically a bunch of stale old white guys, and you really don't want them anymore. You want the cool people like Dylan Mulvaney, who doesn't even know whether she's a boy or a girl, for gosh sake. So that further went down. And then the CEO of the company, rather than just fall all over himself and apologize and say, we did something really stupid and we are so very sorry, we'll never do it again, he came out and tried to justify it and said, oh, we're being very sensitive to our customers. No, you're not. And so it's just continued to fail.
Yeah, well, the meetings in the conference room will be going on for a while as they recreate strategy, I think, to rebrand.
Well, I have a feeling some stockholders are probably going to be dumping their stock because, you know, they look at this and they say, this is a brand that has now tanked.
Yeah.
They're going to have to probably get rid of it and create a whole new brand to replace it. And good luck with that. But I'm kind of, you know, I never want to see a business go bad, but when businesses do stupid things and don't have the guts to admit it, they deserve to get pummeled. Yeah. And boy, are they ever getting pummeled. So there you go. Let's get to the economy. The Democrats this week have kind of shown us a whole lot of what they believe about the economy. Senator Ed Markey, he says Republicans are bullies because they just don't cave in to the threats of the Democrat and Joe Biden about the debt ceiling. Let's watch this.
Look at the Republicans are bullies. You know, they bullied their way into stealing 2 Supreme Court seats. They want to bully their way into using our public debt as a way of extracting unjustified concessions from this congressional process. And we have to stand up to the bullies, or else they'll keep coming back over and over and over again.
Democrats have a kind of funny way of looking at things because their attitude is, give us exactly what we want, everything we want, and all of what we want to give it to us right now. And if you don't, then you're not interested in good government. Unless they are in power completely, and then they say, yeah, whatever we want to do, we're going to do it, and tough rocks, we're not going to negotiate. Now, historically, they've always said, you got to negotiate the debt ceiling. Joe Biden has said that, Markey has said that, Schumer said that. But suddenly it's like, no, we're not negotiating anything. Here's what doesn't make sense, and they're so dishonest about it. The Republican proposal that McCarthy got on the table, the House has voted on it, and it's passed the House. It's the only plan that is on the table. Biden hadn't put one in, Senate hasn't, only McCarthy and the House Republicans. Calls for an increase every year in spending by 1%. So it's not like they're cutting anything. And you hear this term, these deep cuts. What cuts? You're going to spend more money. There are no cuts. This is spending more money than you had the year before. And that's where they're dishonest. But the real dishonesty is the press. They just let it slide, and they never challenge them and say, but they're going to spend more money. It's just ridiculous. So I think this clip kind of shows you where the president is. Joe Biden says that it's disappointing. Republicans don't want to raise taxes.
It's disappointing that our discussions in the congressional Republicans have not been willing to discuss raising revenues, but The policy differences between the parties should not stop Congress from avoiding default.
In other words, raise taxes or we'll just let the whole country fall apart. Well, maybe some of us are kind of the mind that our problem isn't that we're untaxed or taxed too little. It's that the government is spending too much. And maybe since every American household and every American business is having to cut its spending because of inflation and the horrible economic policies of Joe Biden, maybe that would be a good idea for the government to do. Families are cutting, businesses are cutting, nonprofit organizations and even churches are having to cut their budgets because of inflation and the economy as it is right now. Well, why is the government the only entity that doesn't do a little bit of housekeeping, do a gut check on itself and cut its spending? Hard to know. Maybe it's because of the kind of people that are getting elected to run the government. John Fetterman got elected to the U.S. Senate from Pennsylvania. How? I honestly don't know. Why anyone voted for this guy is beyond me. But if you want to understand better the economy, just listen to John Fetterman.
Is it staggering? Is it a staggering responsibility that that the head of a bank could literally crash our economy? It's astonishing. That's like if you have, I mean, like, and they also realize is that now they have a guaranteed way to be saved by how.
Did you get that? I mean, that is incoherent.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. This is not where he stumbled through a couple of sentences. This is utterly incoherent. Nothing he said made any sense whatsoever. None. Yeah. I felt sorry for the guy who was testifying. He's a bank president, and normally I never would feel sorry for a bank president who banged up his bank and ran it into the ground, and now we have to bail him out. But for this time, I actually felt for him because he's sitting there saying, how do I respond to that? Yeah. It's gibberish. I mean, this is like the Senate has now engaged in speaking in tongues, and there was no one to interpret. That's how bad it was. But if you thought it couldn't get worse, the next day John Fetterman shows up at a Senate press conference. And I guess somebody forgot to tell him that, senators typically when they go to the Capitol for business, they kind of dress up a little bit. Fetterman did not get the memo.
President Biden needs to consider using the 14th Amendment if necessary. The entire GOP debt ceiling negotiation is a sad charade. And that's exactly what's wrong in Washington.
What's wrong in Washington is that John Fetterman is there. That's what's wrong. Pam was mentioning, don't they have a dress code? And they do for the Senate floor. There's a certain decorum that one must follow. Right. But because that was a press conference, he was not bound by rules, but he should have been bound by just a sense of decent
taste. A little bit of decorum would help.
You couldn't see the full profile, but he's wearing shorts, sneakers, and a hoodie to go to the press conference. You could almost see in the faces of his colleagues in the Senate this look of, what the heck are you doing showing up looking like this, man? This ain't a locker room. Yeah. It was absolutely astonishing. Can't believe it. The big news of the week, FBI whistleblowers sitting before Congress, and this came right after the Durham report was released, which really did show that everything that we had thought and even said about the Russia collusion story was completely fabricated. Not a bit of it was true. It was all made up, and it was started by Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. And by the way, Barack Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden were briefed on the whole operation by James Brennan, who was a CIA director. So he tells them this whole story. They know it. They know it was phony. But the FBI went ahead and ran with it, and they pretended that there was some likelihood that Donald Trump had colluded with the Russians. It resulted in almost trying to overturn the 2016 election. And then after Donald Trump got elected, they've spent 4 years hounding him, beating him over the head with something that was totally untrue, and they knew it was untrue. They knew it was a lie, and they got warrants, they impeached him twice. All of this to stage what was nothing less than a coup d'etat against a sitting U.S. president. I'd like to think that even if you did not vote for Donald Trump and can't stand even the mention of his name, that you would be outraged that a person who was elected was really the object of a coup staged by the people your tax dollars paid for. Now, the Durham report, unfortunately, did not end with any indictments. There's no accountability. Nobody's getting fired. Nobody's losing their pension. It just basically says these guys are a bunch of cheats, liars, and crooks, and, you know, here they are. They should have had better investigative procedures. Look, my attitude is that's like saying Jeffrey Dahmer should have had better table manners and better sensitivities about his culinary desires. But we're not going to do anything about it. Right. I'm just stunned by this. But I want you to hear what happened this week when 3 really brave FBI whistleblowers, these are people who, in the Bureau, they love the Bureau, they love the country, several of them veterans, served in the war, and they couldn't stand what they saw, and they knew that the agency was being weaponized and politicized, and for that, it wasn't like they got a thank you card from Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI. Watch as Garrett OBoyle talks about what happened to him.
I couldn't knowingly continue on this path silently without speaking out against the weaponization I witnessed, even if it meant losing my job, my career, my livelihood, my family's home, and now my anonymity.
So they gave up pretty much everything in order to try to tell the rest of the American people what's going on. Jim Jordan, who is running the committee in this special hearing, pretty well summed up what's happening to these guys.
Talked to over 24 whistleblowers. People have come to us. We've interviewed several of those, and today 3 of them. 3 of those brave whistleblowers and a lawyer who represents them will tell us their story. They will tell us what happened, what they saw, and then what happened to them because they were courageous enough to report it to Congress. And I just want to tell you guys, get ready. Get ready, because these guys are going to come after you. You know they are.
And boy, did they ever come after them. One of the most outrageous, really disgusting displays of stupidity that I've ever seen in Congress, and we've seen quite a few, not the least of which was when Hank Johnson, in a committee hearing a few years ago, thought that if we put 10,000 active military troops on the island of Guam, one part of the island, it caused it to tip over. I didn't think we could get any dumber than that. Linda Sanchez is basically in this one saying, hold my Bud Light. Watch this. Watch Linda Sanchez.
Mr. Allen, have you ever used Twitter, yes or no?
I have utilized Twitter, yes.
Okay, and is your account at Marcus A970506645?
That is absolutely not my account.
Okay, that's not your account. Well, on December 5th, 2022, an account under the name Marcus Allen retweeted a tweet that said,
That
quote,
is not my account, ma'am.
She went on to argue with him and say, yeah, well, I just want you to answer my question. Do you think the tweet was any good? It wasn't his tweet.
Right.
It was not his account.
Yeah, end of story.
Yeah, it's like, oh, not your account. Well, let me rephrase that. Let me back out of this question. No. She pressed on. If you watch the whole thing, she just kept going. And he said, ma'am, that's not my account. And she's asking him to be accountable for a tweet. Not only did he not make it, but it wasn't even sent from his account. He wasn't even pretending that, look, somebody hacked my account. No, it wasn't his account. Right. How dumb can a person be?
Right.
But she sat there like a penguin of some sort, just proudly acting like she had him. No, she didn't. She made a fool of herself. And I think one of the most chilling moments was at the very end of the whistleblower hearing. And Garrett OBoyle was a final witness and the final question. And what he said was heartbreaking. Watch.
You would legitimately try to protect one of your colleagues from doing what you have done.
Absolutely.
And how do you think that solves being able to shine light on corruption, weaponization, any kind of misconduct that exists with the American people?
It doesn't solve it. But the FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family. if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. And we are all examples of that.
I can't think of a more sobering way to end a hearing. I yield back.
And I can't think of a more sobering way to recognize that what was done to these agents is unconscionable. But let's not also forget what was done to a sitting president, Donald Trump, repeatedly, day after day after day after day, not by his political opponents over at the Democrat Party, not even by the elected officials whose job it is to try to be the loyal opposition, but by the supposedly independent, non-political law enforcement officials at the highest levels of our government, paid for by you, the taxpayer. That is really, truly disgusting.
No.
All right, let's take a few questions, and we've got some more video to get to in a little bit.
And kudos today. We have got fantastic questions coming in today,
Great.
and lots of them. Tricia Falk asked, Gov, what would you do with the report and whistleblowers to get things straightened out if you could?
Well, if I could, I would fire Christopher Wray. I would ask for the resignation of Merrick Garland. I would send SWAT teams to the homes of Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, James Baker, and a host of others who served at both the Department of Justice and the FBI. And I would give them a taste of what they did to Roger Stone and Peter Navarro and to the pro-life guy in Nashville and to a host of other people that got SWAT teams sent to their homes at 5 in the morning and had themselves frog marched across the courthouse lawn unnecessarily. I would not just approach them civilly, take their pensions away and their paychecks and their security clearances. I'd charge them criminally for an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. And I would call them insurrectionists, because the real insurrection was not just what happened on January 6th. Most of those people never thought about overthrowing the government. They didn't like what was going on. Some of them did stupid, some of them did criminal things. I'm not defending any of those things. But a lot of them just went to protest. They didn't have any intention of overthrowing the government. These guys did. That's what you do when you try to unelect a president, when you lie about him prior to an election to keep him from getting elected, and when he still does, then you spend the next 4 years hounding him with lies that you know are lies. This would be different if these guys honestly believed that Donald Trump had done this collusion with Russia. But now, because of the Durham report, we know that they knew it was all a lie. Horrible.
Governor, let's see. We hear from Joe Woodrum this afternoon. How can we, the people, influence the call for a constitutional convention to get term limits for all elected officials?
It happens at each of the state levels. Convention of the States requires 37 states to call for the convention, which means state legislatures have to pass a resolution in the respective states, 37 of them, signed by the governor, that would call for that convention. Until that happens, it won't happen. And that's why I think it should happen. And I absolutely believe in term limits and wish we had them now, because we would be rid of a lot of people that really have long lived past their sell-by date.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sandy McGurgan is asking, is it true that the Congress in any committee cannot arrest or accuse who they are questioning?
It's a good question, Sandy. I don't know. Is the question, can they not arrest anybody they're questioning?
Let's see, let me get back to her. Is it true that the Congress in any committee cannot arrest or accuse who they are questioning?
Well, a committee cannot arrest anyone. They don't have the authority to arrest anybody. They can hold somebody in contempt, but then the Department of Justice would actually have to file a charge. So Congress can't arrest. And the question is, could they?
So what's the point of the hearings?
Well, the point of the hearings is to bring the truth out so that hopefully those who can do the arrest, i.e. the Justice Department, would then follow up on it.
Gotcha.
But if they don't, then, quite frankly, then that committee has exposed the corruption within the Justice Department.
Okay. All right. Let's move ahead. Governor Huckabee from God's Offspring. Support green energy, a green America, and the Green New Deal. Support Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is just simply a comment.
I wondered where that was going.
Yeah,
that was great.
I watched your face. I could see you going with me.
Written. Well written. Bravo.
Dennis Brooks, should Jill Biden be punished for elder abuse?
Oh, boy, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. Look, I give her some slack. It's a wife. She's always wanted to be first lady. She's got the job now. She doesn't want to let it go. I can understand and sympathize with all of that. Whether it's elder abuse or maybe she's oblivious. I don't know. But I do hold a lot of other people responsible, people in the party, people in the White House, the staff, who just pretend that everything is okay. And this is a president. I think it was Joe Scarborough, who has so disgraced himself. He's become a joke. I call him Joke Scarborough in his show, The Morning Joke. But he was talking about what an energetic, hard-working, round-the-clock kind of guy. And his own staff, Biden's staff, says that he basically doesn't do anything before 10 o'clock. Right. And he doesn't do very much after 2 o'clock. And I'm thinking maybe 9:45, they give him a really pop dose of B12, jacks him up for a few hours, and then he collapses again. But, I mean, this is not a president who's tweeting at 2 a.m. because it's like it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your president is? Yeah, he's been asleep for 4 hours. So we're good. All right.
We've got a super chat from David White commenting, imagine Trump's triumphs if no Russia collusion.
It's true, but the sad thing is a lot of Americans are not even hearing about this because MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times, they've been radio silent. They've not told the American people and the people who trust them for news, they've not told them about it. Yeah. So a lot of them still think Donald Trump really did collude with the Russians. And sometimes you can present them with the evidence and they still say, oh, no, it's not true. Here's what's sad. The Washington Post and the New York Times both got Pulitzer Prizes for their reporting that there was collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. Why they keep those prizes and don't return them with a deep apology for the shame of a absolutely false news story that got them a prize, that's horrible. Yeah. And when the Washington Post was confronted, are you going to give back your Pulitzer? Their response was, we stand by our story. In other words, we stand by a flying lie because we're just too arrogant to not do it. All right, I want us to look at a piece of commentary here. This is Debbie Wasserman Schultz from South Florida. I don't think she really intended to sound as racist as she does in this, but I'll explain why it is an incredibly racist statement when she's talking about immigration. Here she is.
He's going to devastate our economy. Tourism, construction, agriculture. I mean, you're going to have vegetables rotting in the fields. You're going to have construction sites that will lie dormant or certainly will struggle to get workers to be able to help make sure that they can make progress.
Well, she says a couple of things that are just, I mean, mouth-dropping crazy. For example, she says you're going to have vegetables rotting in the fields if we don't let illegals pour across the border. Is she saying that all of the agricultural work in this country and all of the construction work in this country can only be accomplished by not immigrants, but by illegal immigrants who lied their way across the border of our country, for whom there is no accountability as to who they are, where they are, how they got here, from where they came, whether they have a disease, whether they're criminals or terrorists. And without these illegal people who just broke across the border, our whole economy will collapse. Because who will pick our vegetables? I suggest Debbie Wasserman Schultz get her rear end out of Congress and let her go down and pick some vegetables for us, because she would be far better at picking vegetables than she is in voting on laws that affect the rest of us. Don't you think?
Agreed.
Okay. Immigration is touching cities that are far away from the border, New York City being one of them. And remember when they bragged about they're a sanctuary city? Oh, we're a sanctuary city. These terrible towns down in Texas and Texans and Floridians, they're not letting these people in, and they're bigots and racist. And then a few hundred of them get to New York. It's one of the biggest city in the country, over 12 million people. And you'd think that they could absorb a few hundred folks. This is Mayor Eric Adams. He's in a panic over the immigrants coming to his sanctuary city.
Where the heck is the President of the United States?
That is a good question, and I think we all should be asking, why is this happening to a city that was turning itself around and will continue to do so? This should not be happening to New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, and the other big northern cities.
No, it shouldn't happen to you big northern cities. It shouldn't happen to anybody. Got to control our border, for God's sake. That's as simple as this can get. And if you control your border, you don't have these cities. And by the way, Chicago's a sanctuary city, San Francisco's a sanctuary city, LA's a sanctuary city, and they all boast about how they were a welcoming people until suddenly the people started showing up and they didn't have a place to live and their kids had to be put in school somewhere and they needed health care and they needed transportation and they needed money to buy groceries. And suddenly these cities are thinking they're not so sanctuary after all. It's pretty fascinating. Joe Biden was asked about it at the White House the other day. Joe tells us, don't worry about it. Things are going better. Watch.
Yeah, you see it.
What kind of la-la land are you living in when the border is being invaded by 10,000 people a day, just pouring over? Yeah. And your answer is, looking a lot better, looking a lot better, yeah, looking better. What universe is Joe in? It ain't the real one. All right, let's take a couple of questions and we'll go to Kamala's comedies.
Sure thing. Rhonda Yeager writing this afternoon, Governor, is it possible to go back and somehow remove one of Trump's impeachments?
No, it cannot be undone. It's like a historical fact at this point. I mean, Congress, I guess, could apologize for what they did. They'll never do it. And all we can really do is just, if he gets reelected, the ultimate comeuppance to these clowns who did this to him and to the rest of us and to the country is for him to be reelected and this time be less tolerant of some of the deep state bureaucrats who I wish he'd gotten rid of before. But, I don't think any of us knew how bad it was, how high up it went. Now we do. Yeah. And so whoever gets elected, they've got to go in and take a Dyson vacuum cleaner to the place and just absolutely clean it out.
Absolutely. All right, another question, Veronica Wallen asking, why doesn't the Arkansas governor direct her AG to bring charges against the Clintons?
Well, you have to have the evidence of the crime. The AG would have to do an investigation. And in Arkansas, the governor can't order the attorney general. The attorney general does not work for the governor. They're independent constitutional offices. Now, fortunately, in the case of the Arkansas governor, who I happen to know, and I happen to know about the office pretty well because I held it for almost 11 years, you can encourage the AG, you can ask the AG, but you cannot order the AG because his office is an independent constitutional office apart from the governor. The other thing is the attorney general does not really have arrest power. That falls with a prosecuting attorney. The attorney general could do investigation, could uncover evidence, and then could turn it to a prosecutor who could actually prosecute a criminal activity. The AG can enter a civil lawsuit, but not necessarily a criminal one in Arkansas. I said we're going to get to some Kamala stories. We got to do that. And by the way, is it Kamala? Is it Kamala? You know, someone got in a lot of trouble because I called her Kamala. And they said, it's not Kamala, it's Kamala. Would somebody please tell that to Joe Biden because he keeps calling her Kamala? What's she interested in right now? Is it the border over which she's supposed to be responsible? Nope. It's a recipe. Watch.
One of my favorite dishes probably is gumbo.
Okay.
I love gumbo.
Yeah.
So I was raised by my mother, and then we had a second mother, Miss Shelton, who was from Louisiana. She made the best gumbo. And I have been a lifelong gumbo apprentice, learning how to make gumbo my whole life.
Okay.
I never mastered it like she did, but that's one of my favorite foods.
Okay.
Probably.
I'm going to say something to Kamala. My wife was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. All of her family is from South Louisiana. They know how to make gumbo. They did it real well. My wife's learned. She's good at it. And it's a wonderful thing. It's one of my favorites. It doesn't take your whole life to learn how to make it. Kamala, if you cannot make gumbo after a lifetime, you probably aren't going to learn. Hate to break this news to her. She went to teach a class and was talking about her academic understanding of gender ideology. Let's watch this.
And most recently, they even want to eliminate classes that teach, quote, gender ideology. Well, so what are we talking about here? Classes that teach women's history?
No, it's not that at all, Kamala. Here's the deal. I know this will come as a shock to you, but there's a difference between men and women, and most of us understand that. It is your party that has obliterated the line between what a man is and what a woman is. And you're the ones who are letting men go into locker rooms, biological men, with biological men's parts, and pretend to be women and undress in front of little girls. That's not us, that's you. And it's not about, do we appreciate women in the marketplace or in the academic classroom? It's that we actually do appreciate it and would like for women to be able to shine as women and not have some guy who competes against women in sports and ends up winning a contest, not because he's better than the women, but because he's a guy. And it's not fair to the women who have worked their whole lifetime. This is insane, but we're dealing with insanity. Okay, I've got one final clip. We're running a little over today, but I can't let this one go. TikTok, the libs of TikTok have released this video. It's the new game for young people is just to walk into people's homes, just to walk in and take videos of themselves in someone's home. I want you to watch it, then I'll have a little wrap up at the end.
Random houses, let's go.
James, come to the front door right now, please.
James. James. Hi. You man, come. Hello, James. We need to speak to James. James. Hi. Hi. James. Is this where the study group is?
No. I mean, this must have been up north somewhere. I'm just going to say this as simply but as bluntly as I can. If some crazy kids are stupid enough to just walk into my house and walk around uninvited, without any warning, not knocking on the door, ringing the bell, just walking around, and I find them, I will call 911. You know why? It's not to wait for the cops. I will call 911 so I can tell them where to come and pick up the bodies of people so stupid that they would walk into my home and think that that was okay and it was funny. They will walk in, but they will be carried out. And I don't mean to be melodramatic, but this is insane. Who raised these kids to think this would be funny?
Yeah.
They're going to walk in the wrong house one of these days, and somebody is going to put them on the floor with a bullet hole through them. Justifiable homicide, and it's a shame.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that happy note...
Look, I'm just wanting a gumbo recipe. I'm so excited.
I got one for you.
Okay, I'm going to contact Janet right after we're done.
You call my wife. She's got a great gumbo recipe. We make it with everything. You can do it with, we do it with turkey, duck, all the things that I go out and hunt. We make gumbo with it. Leftover turkey from, anyway.
Well, that's what I got out of today's
that's
episode.
A great opportunity. Hey, if you haven't already left a question in the comments, continue to do so. We'll be watching them. And I hope you've enjoyed our live stream today. We want you to subscribe to the channel because YouTube certainly won't help us get the content to more people. You're our best hope of that. And if you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, checking under the channel, knowing when we have content coming up, that'll be great. We'll have a different schedule for Live with Mike next week because of our taping schedule built around the Memorial Day holiday. We will be streaming next Tuesday, May the 23rd at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. I hope you're there.